So what does Ross have to do in these next few games to try to catch up? Well, you got to think it's a tough matchup for him. Garbodor is not something he really wants to go up against with a Blastoise deck. He does play a Tool Scrapper, though, and that game could have been pretty close had a few other things gone his way. He got a pretty slow start, didn't get Blastoise, did not get a Keldeo EX powered up too quickly, and Lex, on the other hand, had a really quick Night Spear. Took some quick prizes, got down to 2 prizes very early on. So if you're Ross, you just want to get a faster start this game. Play that Tool Scrapper for the right time, maybe get your abilities back, and we'll see what happens. So I'm pretty sure the players will be allowed to, run to the bathroom during this. It's going to be potentially 5 games here. And this, when you take into account a regular Swiss round for Pokemon used to be 30 minutes plus 3 turns. If we're saying, all right, well, let's say it goes to 5 games. Each game is 30 minutes. Well, you're looking at 2.5 hours for the finals. Now, for my sake, I hope it doesn't go 2.5 hours here. But it certainly could, and it actually certainly could go longer. It is untimed here. There's no time limit for this final match. So it's reasonable for a player to just want to take a bathroom break. We're going to be playing here for a very long time. So it looks like Lex is back. He's going to shuffle up his deck here. And, I just want to say what an incredible run Lex is on. For any player to get here undefeated is just an unbelievable feat. But for a 13-year-old player in a senior division to play up in the main event, to skip out on playing the 14 and under event just so he can play with in the main event with the best competition, that says a lot about the kid. And obviously, he's doing extremely well. He is undefeated at the tournament. He's up 1 game on Ross Cawthon, one of the best players in the world, one of the game's absolute legendary players. And it would be an incredible accomplishment for Lex to take home this tournament. Now Ross, he's been down in a series before. I don't know if he's ever actually played in a best of 5, though. This is the first time at a Pokemon tournament that I'm aware of that we've seen a best of 5 match. Most tournaments are best of 3 for the top cut rounds all the way through. But a best of 5 will be a nice change of pace. The only reason it's probably not done is that it takes forever to do it. But it will determine a worthy winner, I think. In a best of 5 series, the best player or the best deck will come out on top most of the time. In a best of 3, normally the same would hold true, but this just gives you some extra games, some extra cushion to really make sure that the right player wins. So it looks like we're just about done shuffling up here. Of course, Ross lost that first game, so he will have the option to go first. And since going first is a complete advantage, you have no restrictions when you're going first. You pretty much always choose to go first unless you are a maniac. Now you might say, has anyone ever not chosen to go first? And the answer is yes, I witnessed it. This guy was crazy. He said, I want to see if you can beat me on turn 1. And he said, I will choose to go second. And he survived the turn. And he actually ended up winning. It was a weird situation. Otherwise, though, there is no advantage to going second. You actually put yourself at a disadvantage by choosing to do so. So I'm going to think Ross will go first here. And looks like we are shaking hands. Prizes are all spread out. And, all right, we're going to start game number 2 here in the finals of the Klaczynski Open. Ross this turn opens up with a Squirtle in the active position, Keldeo EX on his bench, and we have an N to start off this game after a Water Energy attachment to the bench Keldeo EX. This is about as good of a start for Ross as you could hope for. You want that Squirtle down on the first turn, so that turn 2 you can play the rare candy, get your Blastoise into play, use that ability to deluge, and power up your attackers. Now going first has an even bigger advantage in this sort of a matchup, where your abilities are clashing with your opponents. When Ross gets to go first, he gets the first opportunity to evolve his Pokemon. He can evolve into Blastoise before Lex gets a chance to evolve into Garbodor. Now when he does that, he is allowed to use Deluge to put tons of energy into play. And then he can power up his attackers before Garbodor shuts him off. If Lex goes first, he can get that Garbodor turn 2 before Blastoise comes into play. So he would have the advantage, being able to shut off Ross's abilities before he can actually use them. So going first, the advantage is actually amplified when it's 2 evolution decks going against each other. Ross is going to play a level ball here, search for a Pokemon with 90 HP or less. Normally that's just for Squirtle. And in Ross's deck, he does not play Wartortle, so it will definitely be for a Squirtle. Unless the other 3 are prized, which would not be good for Ross. Does play 4 Squirtle, as almost every Blastoise deck in the world does. So on this first search, Ross is going to go ahead and look through his deck. Check to see if there's anything important prized. How many Black Kyurem EX do I have? How many Blastoise do I have? How many Keldeo EX do I have? Is my Tool Scrapper in the deck? How many Pokemon Catcher do I have to work with? And after he gets a good count, memorizes what's in his prizes, he'll just take his Pokemon and proceed with the turn. Looks like here he's got the Squirtle. Probably bench a second Squirtle here. Does not hurt to do that. There is always the potential for a Sableye to get a Dark Claw, then a Burbank City Gym, then a Hypnotoxic Laser, and then Squirtle could be knocked out on the first turn. So no need to take that risk. He's going to go ahead and bench a second Squirtle. Use his Tropical Beach, the stadium card that allows you to fill your hand up to 7 cards, and then it ends your turn. Here we have Lex going with an Ultra Ball, discarding 2 cards, and then going to search for a Pokemon here. Looks like he goes for the second Trubbish. Now Lex, his first priority is to get Garbodor into play. Once he does that, all of Ross's abilities are shut off if he gets a tool on that Garbodor. So he wants to get 2 Trubbish down. You know, on the off chance that Ross does get a turn 2 rare candy Blastoise and power up his Keldeo EX to Secret Sword, Ross would have the option to catcher out Lex's Trubbish and knock it out. And then if he does that, at least Lex will have a second Trubbish in play ready to evolve after the first one does get knocked out. So it looks like Lex had a very bad start and actually gets bailed out by Ross's Tropical Beach this game. Both players can use Tropical Beach. Stadium cards always interact with both players. And so Lex had no options in his hand, no energy, no supporter cards to draw extra cards. Just played an Ultra Ball, searched for that Trubbish, and then used the Tropical Beach to fill his hand up to 7 cards. If that weren't in play, Lex may have had a very terrible game here, but now, drawing however many cards he drew, looked like 4 or 5, he's going to have a bigger chance to be in this game. Ross here, he's playing a computer search, and whenever your opponent plays a computer search or an Ultra Ball and discards a rare candy, you already know the bad news. Blastoise is coming. So Ross is probably going to play this computer search for a Blastoise. He also discarded a supporter, so that's even more evidence that we're going to see a Blastoise come out this turn. And again, Ross is just going to search through his deck, probably just to reaffirm what's in his deck and what's prized. And it looks like there is another rare candy, as we expected. Blastoise comes out on the second turn of the game. A Lightning Energy comes down, and he's going to play a Pokemon Catcher, bring out a Trubbish. And now he has an N. So this will be a big moment in the game. Ross needs 1 Water Energy. He can use Deluge to power up Keldeo EX, then rush in and knock out the Trubbish with Secret Sword. If he can do that, he puts Lex down to 1 Trubbish in play, and even if that 1 Trubbish evolves, it's just another Pokemon catcher, and then the Keldeo EX already has enough energy on it to Secret Sword, and then he can eliminate Garbodor from play completely and just proceed to use Deluge the rest of the game. And when that happens, I mean, Blastoise has an inherent advantage over a plain Darkrai deck. Looks like Lex once again has ripped a sleeve. Seems to have done that frequently ever since the judges made him switch over to these Pro Mat sleeves. Reduces the glare, makes the cards a little bit easier to see. But he sure has ripped a lot of them in the few matches that he's used them. So here we have an end to 6 cards. Will he get the Water Energy to Secret Sword this turn? And it looks like he did. Looks like a second Keldeo EX will go down. We'll have a Deluge onto Keldeo EX. You know, it is a Lightning Energy, so he probably wishes it was a third Water Energy, but it'll still work. Rush in with Keldeo EX. And he'll Secret Sword for 90 damage, taking the first prize here, and taking down a Trubbish. Alright, so what will Lex do on his turn? He had no energy in play on the first turn. And now he's staring down a Blastoise and a Keldeo EX with 2 Water and a Lightning Energy on it. Of course, first priority would be to get that Garbodor in play, get a Pokemon tool on it, activate Garbotoxin to shut off Ross's Blastoise, and even Keldeo's Rush-In can be pretty important. We see a Dowsing Machine from Lex. We've seen that card be very good at times, and very bad when he hasn't had any other cards in his hand to use. This time he's going to go ahead and Dowsing Machine for the Ultra Ball. Definitely a spot where you'd prefer Computer Search, but I'm sure Lex isn't too worried about it since Dowsing Machine has helped him a lot throughout this tournament. He's going to grab that Garbodor with that Ultra Ball, and we'll see what he has left in his hand here. He does have a Hypnotoxic Laser. This is exactly why shutting off Keldeo EX's Rush-In can be a big deal. If he can poison and put that Keldeo EX to sleep, like he just did, and shut off the other Keldeo EX, prevent it from using Rush-In to get rid of the status effects, that could be stuck and it can help Lex just kind of buy a turn. So we see the Dark Energy, Lex's first attachment, go on to the Sableye. He plays a Super Rod, shuffles in the Trubbish. That's actually a very big deal. He only plays 2 Trubbish and 2 Garbodor. So if this last Garbodor were to go down, and he did not have that Super Rod, he wouldn't have access to Garbodor for the rest of the game. But now he can play this Ultra Ball, and he's trying to decide what 2 cards he wants to get rid of. Gets rid of a Dark Claw and a Skyla. And it looks like he's probably going to search for the second Trubbish again, and indeed he does. And also puts a Float Stone on the second Trubbish. Now that move is a little bit risky. If Ross has a Tool Scrapper, he could discard both Float Stones at once. And that would make it much more difficult for Lex to get another Float Stone in play to continue to lock down Ross's abilities. But he's probably just going to use Tropical Beach this turn. So he wants to play his hand down to 0 and draw fresh 7 cards, and maybe he can finally get an attacker going. So will Lex decide to junk hunt here, or nope, he's going to Tropical Beach for a fresh 7 cards there. Decides, you know what, I'd rather have 7 cards than 2. Probably a good choice, and this is going to be a big flip for Ross. He does wake up. So when you're asleep, you are not able to retreat or attack. But now that that Keldeo EX is awake, he will be able to attack this turn with Secret Sword, take another prize here on the Sableye, and if he has a Water Energy and a Pokemon Catcher, he could potentially knock out the Garbodor on the bench. And then once again, regain his abilities. So this will be an important turn for Ross. At the very least, he will take a prize this turn. He'll at least knock out the active Sableye. If he has the catcher and the water energy, he'll be able to Secret Sword the Garbodor, take the knockout there, and I think that's exactly what he would prefer to do in this situation. He wants to go after Garbodor because he knows if this thing just stays out of play, I will probably win. If I can power up my Black Kyurem EX, Black Bliss to those Darkrai's for 200 damage, I'm going to win just about every time. Darkrai EX has Night Spirit as 90 and 32 bench Pokemon. Normally pretty strong, but not so strong when a Black Kyurem EX comes out and just does 200. Because there's no way for Darkrai to knock out a Black Kyurem EX in one hit. So basically when a Black Kyurem EX comes out and Blastoise is allowed to use Deluge, it's just going to do 200, knock out a Darkrai, and then another Darkrai might come up, Night Spear, and then Black Kyurem EX does another 200, and basically just takes 4 prizes on its own. If Ross can ever achieve this setup, that'll be a huge advantage for him. And here he does have this Pokemon catcher and the Professor Juniper. He's going to go ahead and discard the Black Kyurem EX, a Squirtle, and a Lightning Energy, fishing for a Water Energy here. Looks like he did get that. There are 10 of those in his deck for him to access. So there is the Water Energy. The second Garbodor is going to go down. But Lex did have that Super Rod and got that Trubbish back into play. So if he gets the Garbodor back out, Ross would then need his third and final Pokemon catcher to take out this Garbodor. Otherwise, he'll probably be left without abilities for the rest of the game. So what will Lex do this turn? He's fallen behind in the prize exchange, but this deck can make a big comeback against Blastoise decks once the Garbodor is stuck in play. Looks like he's going right to his discard pile, though. So he's just going to Junk Hunt. That is not a very eventful turn for Lex. Retreats into his Sableye. He has the free retreat from Floatstone. Attaches an energy to the Darkrai EX and gets back a Dowsing Machine and a Dark Claw. Probably not what he had in mind. Now Ross will have a turn to use his Deluge again. Maybe power up a new Keldeo EX. Maybe even power up a Black Kyurem EX. If he has a third Pokemon catcher, he would probably go after that Trubbish, and then it's easy sailing the rest of the way. He can just power up whichever Pokemon he wants. So Ross is going to take his time and make his decision here. This is kind of an important turn for him. If he is able to knock out the Trubbish, you got to think Lex will not have the time to use Junk Hunt for the Super Rod. And the following turn, use the Super Rod, get the Trubbish back into play, and then finally, 3 turns later, get the Garbodor back into play. If the Trubbish goes down here, Ross is pretty much guaranteed to use abilities the rest of the game. Now, if he doesn't, his other option is to just use Deluge as much as he can and power up another attacker. With this prize advantage, if he just has enough attackers in play, it doesn't matter if Garbodor comes out. He'll just be able to, once a Darkrai comes out, he'll be able to respond to these attacks. Ross is trying to figure out, where do I want to deluge this energy? He's actually considering Blastoise. The reason for that would be, if you power up Blastoise, normally Blastoise is kind of a big bullseye on your bench. Has a 4 retreat cost, and when you can't use Keldeo EX's Rush In, that is a pretty big liability sitting on your bench. All your opponent has to do is Pokemon Catcher on the Blastoise, not even knock it out, sit back and Junk Hunt and build up tools and items in his hand. But Ross decides to deluge on a Keldeo EX, thinking, you know what? If I just power up enough Keldeo EXs, if I just power up enough attackers, I should be able to overwhelm Lex, who only has a Sableye with 1 energy and a Darkrai EX on the bench with 1 energy. And he doesn't even have a Garbodor in play. All he has is a Trubbish with the Floatstone. And keep in mind, Ross also plays that Tool Scrapper. So he could, at some point, just Tool Scrapper, discard the Floatstone. And wow, what a turn for Ross. triple Deluge onto the Blastoise. He can rush in with this other Keldeo EX. And then rush in again. Or rush out, as Jason Klaczynski would like to say. Get rid of the poison on his Keldeo EX. So basically he has 3 attackers on the field powered up now. The active one has 4 energy and can Secret Sword at will. The bench Keldeo has 2 energy, just takes 1 more to power it up for Secret Sword. The attack that was just used to knock out this active Sableye. And then Blastoise also has 3 energy on it. Just needs 1 more to Hydro Pump. So Ross has set himself up very well for the rest of the game. He has 3 attackers powered up. And can Lex actually deal with that? Even if he gets a Darkrai out this turn, it'll be very difficult for him to deal with all 3 of those attackers. Now we do have a Hypnotoxic Laser. Dowsing Machine for a Dark Patch. Another Sableye comes down, and here's an N. So both players will shuffle in. Lex will get 6. Ross gets 3. Lex is going to need some good stuff here. I think the first card he's going to want is that Garbodor. If he can get that into play, he'll shut off Ross's abilities once again. Beyond that, he's already gotten his Darkrai powered up. It has 3 energy on it. He can use Night Spear this turn. Also has a Dark Claw. There is 30 damage on the Keldeo EX though. So if there's another card he's going to be searching for, it's Verbank City Gym. If he gets that in play, the Night Spear plus the Verbank and the Poison will do a total of 140 damage, knocking out the active Keldeo EX. And that's going to be a big turn, and wow, he got it. So now Lex is going to retreat this Trubbish. Oh, and he got the Garbodor as well. Huge turn for Lex, especially after putting Ross down to 3 cards. This may be the opening he needs to begin a comeback. He does have a tough decision ahead. Where does he want to put this 30 damage for Night Spear? He will knock out the active. He's going to decide to put the other 30 on that Keldeo EX. Go ahead and take his 2 prizes here. And which attacker will Ross use first? Will he use the Keldeo EX? First of all, does he have an energy to attack? That's pretty important. If he does, will he use the Keldeo EX, Secret Sword for a potential 110? Looks like that's what he's going to do here. Or will he go with the Blastoise, which he decided not to do? Ross does have a Colress in hand here, so he could shuffle in and draw 6. What else could we get? If he could get a Tool Scrapper this turn, I think Ross would, really pull away in this game. If he could pull off a Tool Scrapper, get rid of the tool on Garbodor, and then get a big turn, maybe a superior energy retrieval, deluge all of the energy onto Keldeo EX, potentially knock out the Darkrai in 1 hit. That would pretty much clean up this game. Ross is contemplating playing a card here. Puts the water energy on the active Keldeo EX. And there's a Tropical Beach to stop more of that Verbank laser shenanigans. And he decides to play an N to 3, actually. I do like this play. Basically, he's going to Secret Sword for 110 damage. Darkrai can Night Spear him back for another 110 damage. But unless he has the Verbank City Gym and the Hypnotoxic Laser, he will not be able to knock out this Keldeo EX. So the Keldeo is going to come out ahead in this exchange. Also, Lex does not have a second Darkrai powered up yet. So these 4 cards are really going to have to count for him. Ross draws his 3. And looks like all he can do is Secret Sword. Does not have any other options here. So he's going to hit the active for 110 damage. Lex hits a Dark Patch. That's a very big card to hit, and a second Dark Energy, and a Burbank City Gym. Oh man, is he going to draw it all this turn? If he can get one more Hypnotoxic Laser, Ross may be in some trouble, and we may see Lex take a 2-0 lead in the finals of the Klaczynski Open. So Lex searches his deck with the Energy Search, decides I'd rather keep the energy in the deck, but I wanted a free look at my deck. Why not? Then he's going to play this Professor Juniper for 7 cards, and this is going to be huge. If he gets this Hypnotoxic Laser, adds 30 damage to this attack, Ross is in major trouble. Keldeo EX will go down. Lex will take 2 more prizes. So here it is. Does he draw this Hypnotoxic Laser? If not, he'll just have to accept the fact that he's going to Night Spear this turn and not really do much else. But this won't even be a bad position anymore, because he was able to power up his next Darkrai EX. So there's the Night Spear, does 110 damage to the active Keldeo EX, leaving that with 30 HP, and the bench Blastoise has 110 HP left. Now this does set up for another play if Lex will have a catcher next turn, and then either a Dark Claw or a Burbank City Gym. He can knock out both Blastoise and Keldeo EX at the same time. Looks like Ross may have a difficult play in front of him. I think the card he drew for the turn was Pokemon Catcher. Now this presents a few options to him. The first one would be to Pokemon Catcher the Garbodor. Secret Sword and knock it out. But then what happens is if Lex has a Pokemon Catcher of his own, he could bring out the Blastoise. He already has the Dark Claw. He could Night Spear for 3 prizes and take out Ross's Blastoise. His other option is to simply Secret Sword the active Darkrai EX, going down to 1 prize, which then opens Lex to play an N and put Ross at 1 card. And I think that's probably what Ross is searching for here. Number 1, Pokemon Catcher. Number 2, N. And he'll make his decision perhaps based on how many of each of those Lex has used. So if I were Ross, I would probably just take the knockout on the active, because if Lex has a Pokemon Catcher, your game basically ends if you don't knock out this active Darkrai. But even if you do knock out the Darkrai, Lex could have a Pokemon Catcher, as well as the Burbank City Gym, or a Dark Claw, and still pull off this big 3-prize turn. But Ross is going to knock out the active here, and now it's going to be on Lex to do something this turn. Ross is down to 1 prize to the 4 of Lex. And what can Lex do this turn? He has the opportunity to almost seal this game up. He's going to play a Dark Patch onto his bench Darkrai, Dark on the Sableye, and he has the Pokemon Catcher. But he plays an N. There's 140 active on the Keldeo. 30 HP left. He could have played that Pokemon Catcher here. He could have brought out Blastoise and gone for this big play, but he's deciding, well, you know what? I am just going to hit the active Keldeo and then maybe hit Squirtle for 30 and then give myself 2 shots to draw Dark Claw or the Laser. Because if I hit Squirtle for 30 and then have the Dark Claw or Laser for next turn, I can knock out both Blastoise and Squirtle at the same time. Also, Ross here goes down to 1 card off of this N. So he is going to be in some trouble. His active Keldeo EX most certainly is getting knocked out here. So we're going to have the retreat into Darkrai. We'll have the Night Spear. And Ross may only have 1 turn to draw this card for the win. Lex takes the knockout on the active Keldeo EX. Does Ross have the Pokemon Catcher? Will he promote the Blastoise or the Squirtle? If he promotes the Blastoise, he does have 4 energy on the Blastoise. If he draws a Pokemon catcher, he can bring out that Sableye Hydro Pump for the game. If he misses, though, and Lex has either a Dark Claw or a Hypnotoxic Laser, Lex takes this game and goes up 2-0 in this series. Ross does not seem to have a very good card off of his end. If he had the catcher, you got to think by now, even Ross would have promoted the Blastoise and catchered out the Sableye for the win. So he may have to rely on a top deck here. He's going to look through his discard pile, see what are my odds of top decking the correct card in this situation. Because if I promote Blastoise and I miss, I can lose. But I think he has to do it here. He has to just go for it. Ross promotes the Blastoise. Does he draw a card to get him a Pokemon catcher? What does he have? A Juniper! Oh no! One Pokemon catcher to win here. Does Ross draw the Pokemon catcher? If he gets it, he knocks out the Sableye and he wins the game. And I don't believe he drew it. Lex may survive here. Wow. That's a real roller coaster ride right there. Your opponent top decks the Juniper, draws 7 cards, has an opportunity to win the game with a Pokemon catcher, but he misses. And now Lex will have another opportunity to take this game and be up 2-0 in the finals. I'm not sure if Ross has any more options in his hand here. He's going to try to figure out the best move in this situation. If he had a Rare Candy and a Blastoise, he could evolve his other Squirtle and prevent Lex from winning the game if he did have another Dark Claw or a Hypnotoxic Laser. A Tropical Beach to counter out the Burbank City Gym would force Lex to have the Dark Claw only. So now what will Ross do? He's taking a look through his discard pile, trying to see what he has left. And keep in mind, Garbodor is still out there. Garbotoxin is shutting off Blastoise. So even if Ross wanted to bench a new attacker, he really couldn't power it up. It would probably take 3 or 4 turns for him to do so, unless he also has a Tool Scrapper. So what will Ross do here? I'm not sure if he actually has any options. He's going to count how many cards he has left in his deck. Maybe he has a Tropical Beach and wants to see if he plays it, can he use it? He's going to check his discard pile once again, see how many resources he's gone through. Again, this is a best of 5 in the finals. First player to 3 wins wins this event. Untimed, absolutely no time limit. This can go, well, we can be here all night. I hope not, but we certainly could be. So here's the Ultra Ball. Ross is going to discard a few cards here, and he may have that Tropical Beach. He's going to discard a Skyla and a Superior Energy Retrieval. He thinks maybe those cards won't be worthwhile anymore. Take a look through his deck here. And is there even a Pokemon for him to take anymore? He has gone through a lot of cards in his deck. I think in a perfect world, he would like to take a Blastoise here, and then Rare Candy into a Blastoise if he has that. Prevent Lex from getting that 2 prize turn he needs to win the game. But no, we have a Squirtle instead. This could be very bad for Ross. Just going to shuffle his deck here. And I would assume he does not have the win this turn. Otherwise, he probably would have done it a few minutes ago. So he may bench the Squirtle here. But then if he does that, Lex has another option to win with a Pokemon catcher. So it looks like, wow, Ross is going to retreat his Blastoise into Squirtle and pass the turn. Lex has the Pokemon Catcher and the Hypnotoxic Laser, and he wins game number 2. He takes a 2-0 lead in this finals. Lex D'Andrea is up 2-0 on Ross Cawthon. One more game, and he will become the undefeated Klaczynski Open champion at just 13 years old with some of the game's absolute legends. Ross has to feel like that was his best opportunity to win a game there. And he's got to be upset that he wasn't able to close that one out. Looks like he's going to get up, take a bit of a break himself, take a breather, head to the bathroom perhaps, think about what just happened, maybe try to develop some strategy here. How can he beat this kid? This guy has not lost a match the whole weekend. He's just always had an answer to everything his opponent has done. And it's just one more game. One more win is all he needs. If he can win one out of these next 3 games, he'll take home the trophy, take home the case, he'll take home everything.